Well, hello there, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Two Sons Podcast. I am your co-host, Philip, and in this episode, it's going to be a little bit of an impromptu episode. My brother was recently just on vacation, so we couldn't get together to record an episode this week, but fear not, your co-host has come to save the day, as usual. And we are going to be talking about something that we really haven't discussed on the channel before. We talked about it once briefly, like probably over like a year or two ago, it almost seems like. But we haven't talked about it since, and that is House of the Dragon, or Game of Thrones in general. But more specifically, we're going to be talking about House of the Dragon, as they just re-released their second season. Not this Sunday at the time of the recording, but last Sunday. So I believe that would be the 16th. So June 16th is when they had the first episode of their second season. And yeah, tonight, the day I am recording, they're going to have their second episode of the season. So, that will be talked about in another episode. But today I thought, you know what, before I forget, and you guys don't have something to listen to or watch during the week for your viewing pleasure, that I will, scrap together, a little bit of an episode, maybe 20, 30 minutes, nothing too major, as, there was, a decent amount of stuff that happened in the first episode, but not really too much to talk about. Um, that you guys can listen to start off your week and yeah and ride out the rest of June with. So without further ado, oh, excuse me. Without further ado, we are going to jump right into today's episode. So before we start, of course, I will let you guys know how I'm doing. At the time of recording, on this June 23rd, it is my birthday. My birthday is June 23rd, so it is my birthday today. I turned 25 years old today. So it's been a nice, quiet, pleasant birthday. I didn't really want to do too much, and I just, wanted to rest and relax and all that. So I took the opportunity to do so. I watched some soccer the whole entire day, and yeah, just rest, relax, recuperated until I have to do it all again tomorrow and go back to work and go back to our normally scheduled programming. But yeah, so today's my birthday, and yeah, like I said, I thought I'd take some time out of my day today to bring you guys an episode. Other than that, I recently just saw my brother recently. Him and his girlfriend came down to Florida for a vacation, and they stopped by my dad's house, and we all got together and had dinner and had a good time, and were able to see each other, which was really nice, and I was very happy about that. Um, and it was definitely good seeing him, getting the family back together. But a little bit on some sadder news. Unfortunately, me and my brother, we lost our dog Stella. She was 11 years old, and she passed away on Thursday. So it's been very hard for us. We were very close to her, and she was, a very important member of the family. So I will miss her a lot. So it's gonna take me a couple of days to feel better about this. But yeah, so it's definitely been a roller coaster of emotions. I've been having some health issues, some stomach issues, and thankfully my TMJ and jaw is on the mend. So now I just have to worry about getting my diet straight and taking some medication to help with my stomach and just kind of get my mentality and my physical health and well-being back in check and go forward from there. But yeah, so it's definitely been a lot. I'm sure my brother will tell you more when we sit down and record for you guys next week. But yeah, it's definitely been a little bit of a roller coaster of emotions this June. And it's not exactly how I pictured the month of June, but it is what it is. You just have to kind of roll with the punches, and it's all mind over matter, and you just got to believe and make the best of it. So on the bright side, I did get a new tattoo that you guys can see. I don't know how the quality will be on the video, so it might be hard to see in detail. But yeah, so that was my little birthday present to myself. It's a Star Wars piece, so it's on the same arm that I have the Attack on Titan, but it's a Star Wars piece. I based it off the Phantom Menace in honor of their 25th anniversary this year, and in honor of me turning 25, I wanted to kind of collaborate, and I did the piece for the Phantom Menace. So But yeah, so with that being said, I think we'll jump right into this episode. So, as I mentioned before, we're going to be talking about episode one of season two of House of the Dragon. So that premiered last Sunday on, I believe I said June 16th. And for those of you that need a little bit of a refresher, uh, there will be a video. I'll have to find it. It'll be probably posted at the end of this video, like up here or down here somewhere. But the House of the Dragon, actually, no, we weren't doing YouTube at the time, so it's not going to be available. So if any of you Two Sons podcast viewers are diehard enough to go into Spotify and find the episode where we talked about Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, and we did that whole breakdown episode. If you want to learn a little bit more about the lore and the history, it will be in that episode. However, I'll briefly just give you a synopsis of what we saw in season one and where exactly we are at with season two. So obviously, season one basically we had the king of Westeros at the time, Viserys Targaryen, name his daughter Rhaenyra Targaryen heir to the Iron Throne. She was going to become the queen of Westeros, basically. Um, Now, after he did that, he ended up marrying, um, excuse me, he ended up marrying Rhaenyra's best friend, Alicent Hightower, and her and Viserys had a couple of children. He had a couple of sons and a daughter, and the claim to the throne was becoming a little bit more murky because now Viserys had a true-born male heir in Aegon the Second Targaryen, and there was division among the family, and people didn't know if they should still keep their loyalties and swear their oaths to Rhaenyra, or if they should put Aegon on the throne and basically usurp the throne and keep everything very status quo. Because for the whole history of Westeros politics, there's always been a king. There's never been a queen. So having Rhaenyra as queen definitely would have shaken things up. So to better maybe control the population, they were thinking about obviously putting Aegon on the throne and just kind of keeping the line of male heirs. Um, but we see that obviously behind the scenes there is a bunch of scandal, a bunch of turmoil, political upheaval and whatnot. We see Rhaenyra has a couple of lovers. We see that she um, is married to her cousin, Sir Laenor of Velaryon, but we find out that he's actually gay. So he ends up faking his death and running away to Essos with his partner, basically. And after that, we see Rhaenyra kind of get into this like secret relationship with a knight known as Sir Harwin Strong. And through Sir Harwin Strong, they have three children. They have Jacaerys, Lucerys, and Joffrey Targaryen. And obviously, everybody in Westeros could easily tell that these children are not Rhaenyra's and Laenor's because Laenor was light skinned and Rhaenyra was white, and all these children are white and have black hair instead of the platinum blondes or silver hair of the Targaryens. So obviously, Rhaenyra's claim to the throne, and then also who would replace her, when her time of rule was over, started to come into question because everybody saw these children as like illegitimate bastards, basically, and not true Targaryen children. So by this time, like obviously the family was at each other's throats. Different parties started to form, and that's where we get like the slogans of like Team Green and Team Black. Obviously, we have Team Black to represent Rhaenyra and just House Targaryen, and then we have Team Green to represent the High Towers. So Alicent and her children and her father. Representing House Hightower because obviously the High Towers, one of their colors are green. So oh, sorry, I just had to stretch. Um, Hence the name Green and Black. We see towards the end of his life, unfortunately, Viserys makes this like a really emotional speech and tries to bring the family together one last time. Where at first glance it looked like it worked, because it was a really good episode and everybody seemed to be you know under the same position. And then we see, of course, that the children start to like act up and poke insults at each other. And unfortunately, with Viserys's dying breaths, he basically Alicent basically misinterprets what he's saying. He thinks in that moment he's talking to Rhaenyra, his daughter, and he doesn't know that it's Alicent, so he's trying to basically explain Aegon's dream. Aegon the conqueror that came over with House Targaryen and conquered Westeros. Basically explaining his dream and vision. And she hears the words Aegon, and she thinks that he assumes that he's talking about Prince Aegon, which is what basically starts her plans in motion to put him on the throne because she's going to coin it as basically, oh, well, this was a Viserys' dying wish. He told me he wanted Aegon, even though that's not true. So then, towards the end of season one, we had the camp start to form, between Team Green and Team Black, and then they sent out ravens and messengers, and they're trying to get like the notable houses and like lords allegiances. At the end of the show, oh, excuse me. And we see that her youngest son, or her middle child, actually, Lucerys Velaryon, is sent to the Stormlands to go, bargain or, talk to House Baratheon. And we see that upon arrival, Aemon Targaryen is actually there, and he pledged to marry one of Boris Baratheon's daughters, in exchange for like House Baratheon's allegiance, basically. Um, and we see that they poke insults at each other, but eventually, Lucerys just finds out that it's just easier to leave, and then he leaves aboard on top of his dragon, Arax, I believe his dragon's name is. And we see that like Aemon and his dragon Vagar are kind of like taunting him and like chasing after him. But then unfortunately, Aemon's dragon Vagar takes it a little too far, obviously, and actually ends up eating Arax and Lucerys, basically killing Rhaenyra's son, and therefore like starting the inevitable dance of the dragons as the in-family fighting has actually ended up in bloodshed. And we'll see that continue in this first episode. Um, but yeah, I mean, that was a quick little recap of season one. I mean, if you guys are interested in me doing a little mini series, going back and watching season one and breaking down each episode and talking about it, just leave it down in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think. Um, but yeah, for now, we're gonna get into the episode. So sorry, my jaw is a little sore from eating. Um, if I had to, rank this episode out of Suns, I think I'm gonna give it a solid 10 out of 10 Suns. To be honest, I think it was a perfect way to open up season two of House of the Dragon, and it really set the stage for what's to come. I think some of the highlights was basically seeing like where everybody is, like position wise. Where is Team Green at? What is their strategy? What is going on with them? And then vice versa, Team Black. When it comes to Team Black, we see that Rhaenyra is still mourning the loss of her son Lucerys, because obviously his death came by Raven. So, they don't know where the body is, they don't know where his dragon is. I guess they just assume that he was eaten by Vagon, which he was. Um, so she is like in the process of mourning. She's basically looking for her son's body, trying to find it, trying to get some sort of closure. And she only has like actually one line of dialogue this whole entire episode. So Emma Darcy does a really good job, like just portraying that grief and that loss of a mother, and then like the vengeance and the look on her face, like towards the end of the episode. She does a really good job portraying all those emotions. So I mean that was great, especially when we see that a wing of Arax washed up on shore, and we see that her and Rhaenyra and her dragon Syrax go to find it. And what's really interesting about the scene is that not only is Rhaenyra mourning Lucerys, but Arax was actually the child of Syrax, which is Rhaenyra's dragon. So in that scene, basically both mothers are grieving their childs, which I thought was really powerful. And I mean, for practical effects and CGI, I mean, they really make you feel bad for that dragon, to be honest. Um, so we see that Rhaenyra is a little preoccupied, and we also see that the death of Lucerys has hit some other people a little hard as well. We see that uh, the brothers, Jacaerys, well, especially Jacaerys, but then also Joffrey. We see that the news hits Jacaerys pretty hard, because in the meantime he was actually up north in Winterfell, basically making sure that the House Stark pledges their loyalty to Rhaenyra, and he actually gets the oh, sorry, it's been a long day. He actually gets the news of his brother's death by Raven as well. And there's a really touching scene of him and his mother meeting back up, and he's trying to like act all like princely and like orderly and like tell Rhaenyra like what's going on. Um, and he starts breaking down, and she comes over to comfort him, and they embrace in a hug, and then they have a nice little funeral pyre, memorial for Lucerys, and they throw his belongings on the fire, and I'm sure they say a few words, and you know honor him in that way. So we have obviously Rhaenyra there. We have his brothers Jacaerys and Joffrey, and then we even have Daemon's daughters. I don't remember their names. I think one of them is Baela, and then I don't remember what the other one. I don't know if it's Baela and Bella or, um, but basically those two daughters were actually married to Rhaenyra's children. So again, they're marrying their cousins. This is Game of Thrones, I mean, this is what the Targaryens did, but you can even see that they were devastated by it, which really shows that the relationship and the bond that they had with one another. Um, but yeah, so I mean, when it comes to Rhaenyra and her immediate family, obviously everybody's in a state of shock, and mourning. We even see characters like, Princess Meleys. No, I'm sorry, not Meleys. Oh my God, what's her name? My God, I don't remember her name. It will come back to me. But we see someone like Corlys Velaryon, who's recovering from his injuries in the first season. We see that he had like some sort of dagger or a knife like commissioned for Lucerys after he named him like the heir to Driftmark, which is basically like the seat of House Velaryon. And we see that he's a little bit in shock and like a little bit of state of disbelief. When he hears the death of Lucerys. And then no, because Meleys is the name of her dragon. What is her name? Oh my God, it's gonna bother me. Um, I don't know. His wife's name. It's gonna bother me that I don't know his wife's name. Um, Give me 1 second. Let me look this up because it's gonna bother me if I don't remember. Um, Rhaenys. Rhaenys Targaryen is the name of his wife, and we see that she's not necessarily in mourning, but she understands how Rhaenyra feels because basically her own daughter um, died, and her death was sent through Raven, similar to how Rhaenyra's child death was sent. Um, so, she understands what Rhaenyra is going through, and she's trying to explain that, well and true to Daemon, who is kind of on the warpath. For those of you that don't know, Daemon Targaryen, he's the brother to King Viserys, but he is also the uncle to Rhaenyra, and surprise, surprise, they end up falling in love and getting married, and then they eventually have children together. But we actually didn't see any of their children in this episode, to be honest. I think they only have the one child for now, which is Aegon, the third Targaryen. Um, but yeah, so he's kind of on the warpath. He wants to like go to King's Landing and basically kill Aemon and Vhagar and like do like a son for a son, and he just wants to obliterate them. And Rhaenys is trying to explain to Daemon like what Rhaenyra is going through, and kind of get it through his head that like, she's grieving and, he shouldn't act, without her wishes and whatnot. And, he does eventually, restrain himself and stuff like that. Um, but, that's basically what Team Black is up to. They're basically just in the process of mourning. They're kind of in disbelief that this even happened. And, they just kind of want answers. Um, Now, when we flip the script and we go to Team Green, they're kind of on hiatus, right? They're kind of preparing for the inevitable. Obviously they beefed up security at King's Landing. So they have, the King's Guard as well as like, soldiers from Hightower, kind of patrolling the walls, in the keep. And they have scorpions built, throughout King's Landing to deter like any dragon attacks. They have Aemond and Vhagar patrolling King's Landing to, dissuade anybody from attacking King's Landing. And we see that the small council for the Greens is convening to try to figure out what to do next. So this is where we start to see like the inner workings of the Greens and that part of the Targaryen family. So we see King Aegon II, starting his like responsibilities as king of Westeros. Whether it's like talking to the small folk and like hearing their pleas in the throne room, which was a really good scene. Especially when he starts to fight back against his father. I'm sorry, not his father, his grandfather, Otto Hightower, because the his grandfather is the hand of the king. He was the hand of the king to his father, and now he's the hand of the king to him. And he's very controlling. Obviously, him and his daughter Alicent have their own agenda. They want to take the Iron Throne for themselves or just control their children to basically do that. And he's very controlling, very manipulative. And we see Aegon kind of stand up for to him in this episode, which is really interesting, and I actually admired that, to be honest. So his meeting with the small folk was really good. I liked how they shot that, and besides that, we also see his wife Helena, which is also his sister, again Targaryen stuff, and their children. So I believe Jaehaera Targaryen, which is their daughter, and then Jaehaerys Targaryen, which is the heir and the son to Aegon II, and the heir to the Iron Throne, basically, named after his grandfather, Jaehaerys Targaryen, who named Viserys actually the heir to the Iron Throne. Way back in the first episode of season one. So we see that obviously Helena's a little bit on edge. There is the possibility that she could see like the future or she has like visions. She um predicted a couple things in season one, but nobody really took her seriously. They just kind of thought she was like quirky and just a interesting person. Um and she is worried in this episode. She's worried about the rats, and obviously the rats are going to be a big part of this episode. But she's worried about something so small as like the rats, right? Like there's rats throughout the Red Keep, and they have rat catchers to like set traps and like take care of them. But she's worried about them, and this obviously will mean a lot more later on. So when we see Aemon, when we talk about their brother, Aemon, we see that he's, patrolling King's Landing with Vhagar. And we see that, he is basically, like the military or campaign advisor to his brother when it comes to like, taking action, against Team Black, basically. And we see that Aemon is very much like on the warpath, same as Daemon, where he wants to like get out there and start like, spreading their influence and like, putting their stamp on Westeros. And we even see towards the end of the episode that him and Kristen Cole are starting to like plan some like possible military moves that they could do to strengthen their position throughout the realm. So we see that he's very narrow-minded when it comes to what he wants to do, and he just wants to go to war and he wants to like ensure victory, for his family and for his house, basically. Um, and I thought it was really well done. I really enjoyed it. Um, and then finally, we get to the mother and the father. We'll talk about the father in a second, but the mother. So we open up in a very interesting scene with Alicent, where she's predisposed with Sir Christian Cole, and basically the only way to put this is that the scene opens up with Christian Cole basically giving Alicent oral, and they're obviously in the middle of sex. Um, so we're meant to imply that Alicent and Kristen Cole have been fooling around for quite a while. After Viserys' death, they had started fooling around, and that's it's just an interesting way to open up her character in season two. Funny enough, in the source materials or in the book, Alicent and Kristen Cole are never an item. So I wonder why they chose to change it for the show, but I don't think it's a bad change. I think it's to be pretty interesting, especially how it leads to the end of this episode and where it could lead for the future. Um, but we see that she is somewhat like celebrating her independence and her womanhood by like being able to actually like enjoy herself and take control of what she wants to do with like her body and everything after like basically being a pawn her whole entire life. So you got to give props to her. I mean, I didn't mind it, and again, it just shows her newfound independence and womanhood by being able to be like, no, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna just enjoy myself. Even a scene like her taking the sponge from the handmaidens and like washing herself in the bath, like just giving herself more of that autonomy, you know, is refreshing. It's really nice. Um, but we see that she is, behind the scenes, she's trying to influence, her sons in the correct way. I mean, at this time, obviously, she doesn't want war. She still loves Rhaenyra and she still wants to like, avoid war at all costs and like, come together. And she's been sending Rhaenyra messages and letters and whatnot. And she's really trying to find a way for the family to come together again, with some sort of compromise. Um, but we see that her voice is like slowly being silenced by like both her father and just all the other men at the small council, um, because you know they're just drowning her out. So we see that in response to that, she's taking some of her own autonomy like on the side, and she's just doing what she wants because her voice is being silenced anyway. So she might as well take control of somewhat of her life. And then returning back to her father, we see that Otto Hightower is still like up to his scheming ways, like he was in season one. We see that he's trying to control his grandson Aegon, on the throne and basically be his voice. Um, but we see that excuse me, we see that Aegon, had some pushback to that and encouraged by a character by the name of Larys Strong, who was the brother to Sir Harwin Strong. Um, he's kind of pushed or influenced to maybe possibly replace his grandfather as Hand of the King, and kind of make his own statement. Um, so we see slowly but surely that Otto's power or his influence is being drowned out. And his grandchildren are not as easy to control as his daughter or the previous king. So it's going to be curious to see where his character goes for the rest of the season. Um, But yeah, we see that not only is he trying to control and manipulate his grandchildren, but he's also trying to work with his daughter to like ensure that their family stays on top and that they basically inherit the Iron Throne and Westeros. Um, so, what's interesting is that we have two like differences here, right? We have like Team Black, who is kind of like in a state of shock and they're mourning, the loss of Lucerys. And then we have Team Green, who are not only like, trying to secure their position and like figure out what next steps to do, but they're also like conniving and they're also scheming across each other's backs. Um, so it seems like Team Green is more in shambles, because of what Aemon and Vagar did. And it seems Team Black is more unified than ever, especially with the death of Lucerys. Um, and that's basically like kind of like where we're at, pretty much. We see that obviously, like I said, Team Green, they start, transitioning Aegon into like a true king. So he has like, the meeting with the small folk. He hears like their petitions and their cries for help. They have their small council meeting where they go over like their strategy and their plans and like what houses would support them and whatnot. We see, Aegon's son Jacaerys, Jaehaerys kind of fight the master of, I don't know if it's ship or coin, Tywin Lannister. Um, so they do make Aegon to be a good father. I'm not sure if that's how it was in the source material, but they do make him seem like he was a good father and that he cares about his children. Um, and yeah, you can tell that he really loved Jaehaerys. Um, And like I said, going forward, they're just trying to find some sort of battle plan, right? And we cut back to Rhaenyra finally returning the Dragonstone, obviously after finding some of Lucerys's items and Aerax's wing. Ooh, sorry. Um, and she basically proclaims to her small council that she wants Aemon Targaryen. Like she is very much on like the revenge path. She wants Aemon Targaryen. Um, so as soon as Daemon hears that, he springs right into action. So for those of you that remember from season one, the White Worm, which was kind of like Daemon's like confidant in King's Landing, was stowed away on a ship and was brought into his care. So with the information that she has about the Red Keep and King's Landing, he heads back to King's Landing, basically recruits a member of the City Watch, which he used to be a commander of. So obviously there's some loyalty to Daemon within those ranks, and he recruits him along with one of the rat catchers to basically infiltrate the Red Keep and kill Aemon Targaryen and basically make it a son for a son. So obviously they leave it off where they ask Daemon like, well, what if we can't find Aemon? Then they kind of just the camera just kind of pans to him, so you don't know what he said or what he was thinking. Obviously we find out later what he said, but the last like 10, 15 minutes of the episode are really interesting because it basically just pans to blood and cheese, which are what these two characters are called in the books, the whole entire time. And it shows basically from their point of view. I mean, we see some other characters in the background, but it's entirely from their point of view. Um, so we see that, because the rat catcher is in King's Landing every day, or the Red Keep every day, he's able to traverse the Red Keep and get them to the floor where, like, the nobility lives, basically. And we see that, they stumble upon the throne room where like Aegon and his buddies are like basically piss drunk and they're just having a good time and they're laughing and whatever, which is kind of true to the book, because if I remember correctly, Aegon the second in the book, was a fat drunk. I mean, obviously this Aegon's not fat, but he was drunk. So maybe that's like a prelude to how his character is going to end up, as the episodes go on. But we see that they eventually make it up to that floor, and we see that Cheese actually ends up putting Helena at knife point. And Blood comes in, and basically they demand Helena to tell them which one of those children is her son, because we find out that if they couldn't find Aemon Targaryen, then Daemon told them basically a son for a son. So you know at first you're like, there's no way Helena's gonna like give up her child, right? Um, but then she actually points to Jaehaerys. Um, and at first they think that she's lying. But then like, Cheese kind of looks at her and like looks into her eyes and he's like, no, she's telling the truth. And we have this really brutal scene of basically Blood and Cheese holding down Jaehaerys, and we know that they kill him and they basically take off his head to bring back, as proof for Daemon. And in the meantime, we see that Helena picks up her daughter, Jaehaera, or yeah, Jaehaera, I think, and basically run away. And she goes to find comfort in her mother because her and her mother are very close. But as she walks into the bedroom, she sees basically her mother and Kristen Cole having sex. So we see that they went back to doing the thing that they weren't supposed to and having sex. And this is obviously a very big deal because Christian Cole was supposed to be on guard that night and he was supposed to be watching Helena and the children. So this is going to be a very big deal, and I'm sure it'll be talked about in tonight's episode. Um, but yeah, so we see that the episode ends with basically Helena in shock holding her daughter, and Alicent asks her, what's going on, and then she basically was like, they killed the boy. And then there was like a shock of like basically like a face of shock on Alicent, like, and I think she quickly understood what she meant by that. And then basically the episode faded to black, and then that was the episode. So I mean, like I said, there wasn't really too much going on in this episode. I mean, like I said, we really just got an insight on how both teams or factions were kind of panning out. Like I said, I'm sure we'll see a lot more of that in this episode. But yeah, no, I mean we see how each side was kind of preparing for like an inevitable war, which eventually now there is going to be because according to the Greens, Team Black just killed the King's, sole heir. Um and yeah, and we're gonna see what happens in tonight's episode, obviously, because the episode will probably come out in about an hour. So yeah, so we'll see what happens tonight, and then obviously we'll talk about it next week. But That is pretty much it. That's all I kind of have for you guys today. It was just kind of like, my quick rundown and reaction to season 2, episode 1 of House of the Dragon. Like I said, I would give it a solid 10 out of 10 suns. I thought it was a perfect way to open the show, really grab your attention, bring you back to House of the Dragon and this wonderful world of George R. R. Martin and Westeros. It was really good. Let me know down in the comments below, who your favorite character is, what team are you? Are you team black? Are you team green? Who do you support in all of this? And yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed this little preempt episode. And like I said, the video will be posted tomorrow to YouTube, and then when my brother gets the chance, he will post it to Spotify. So if you're wondering where you could stay up to date and find out everything that is going on with the two of us, you could find us on Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, at Two Sons Podcast. That's with an O, not a U, because we are two brothers. You can also find us on TikTok at Two Sons YouTube, and you can find us on Spotify and YouTube, all under Two Sons Podcast. Again, that's with an O, not a U, because we are two brothers. So, like I said, this episode will be out for everybody's viewing pleasure tomorrow, probably around midday. So until then, I hope everybody has a great rest of their weekend. Wish me a happy birthday in the comments down below, as I will hopefully try to enjoy the rest of my night and just relax because I'm pretty exhausted, to be honest. It's like I said, it's been a rough couple of days, so I am exhausted and I'm tired. So hopefully I get a good night's sleep and start off the day tomorrow nice and refreshed. But like I said, with that being said, thank you guys so much for coming out to another wonderful episode of Two Sons Podcast. And I don't really have anything to say, like, to close out this episode, like no special catchphrase or anything for House of the Dragon. Um, but until the next one, whenever you see this, whenever you watch this, listen to this, I hope you're having a wonderful day, a wonderful morning, wonderful afternoon, wonderful evening, just a wonderful day. Please be safe. Do not do anything stupid. Stay hydrated. And I will see you, as well as both of us, will see you guys all in the next one. Goodbye for now.